Cells at Work might be one of the most fresh and unique anime experiences I have had in quite some time. And it also made me realize that every single day there is an epic anime fight going on in my very own body. Get ready for a fantastic voyage, my friends, with the brand new anime series, Cells at Work, otherwise known by its Japanese title of Hataraku Saibo. Cells at Work is all about the anthropomorphized blood cells which actually live within your body, which is actually represented as a massive metropolitan city. These blood cells team up together to fight against pathogenic viruses, bacteria, and all types of creepy microorganisms. So let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. This is essentially the anime version of Osmosis Jones. It also takes some inspiration from Disney and Pixar's Inside Out, and even takes some elements from Rick and Morty. And while this series might have a lot of similarities to those stories, I think its execution is what really sells it. Not to mention that it's just, frankly, a lot of fun. The very first episode of Cells at Work truly won me over with its amazing character design, its awesome backdrop of the human body, which looks very different from what you would probably expect. They actually make it look like a living, breathing city. Nothing actually looks organic. It all looks like it's just a bunch of people hanging out in a normal city that you would walk through every single day. What's really great about this show is we actually get to see what goes on in the lives of these normal, ordinary blood cells and microorganisms. And it looks like the entire series is going to focus on two characters in particular, a red blood cell and a white blood cell. They don't seem to have any names at this point, but they certainly have a lot of personality. And even though they look human and they're anthropomorphized, these are still very much the microorganisms that exist in your body. They have roles to play. So the red blood cells are going to be delivering oxygen to the lungs and to the heart, with white blood cells actually going around killing germs, bacteria, and any foreign object that enters the body. And they certainly do it with gusto, a lot of violence, and of course, lots of slick-styled anime action. It is worth mentioning that this anime series is actually based on an ongoing manga, which I've never actually heard of, and apparently the anime version is being done by David Productions, who's most famous for working on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I absolutely love that franchise, I love the work that David Productions does, and I have to say that this might actually be some of their best work. But the entire first episode is an introduction to the world of the human body and the things that live within it. And like I said, it looks like they're mostly going to be focusing on the red and white blood cell. And the very first episode is all about the red blood cell's very first day at work. You're gonna have to question, like, was this red blood cell just born? Does she have a family? Do they even have lives outside of work? I mean, are they just completely dedicated to their roles as microorganisms? When you start to ask these questions, it can actually ruin the episode for you. If you just take it for what it is, these microorganisms doing their job that happen to look human, you're gonna end up loving this show. Our main heroine, the red blood cell, who I'm going to refer to as Red, is very nervous to be on her very first day at work. She's confused, she doesn't know where to go, she has to deliver a package to the lungs, but she doesn't know how to get there. They also introduce us to the white blood cell, who I will refer to as White, and that's because a germ has just infected this person's body, something that could potentially cause pneumonia. And these germs and viruses are shown as being very monster and alien-like, and they have really cool and slick designs, and they definitely emphasize the fact that these things are dangerous and different from the other microorganisms that we see in the show. The white blood cells finally arrive, and they start to take these things out in extreme violent fashion, which is both funny and really cool to watch. One of these creepy germs actually manages to escape, and the rest of the episode follows the red and white blood cell as they desperately try to make their way to the lungs and find this evil germ, which could potentially destroy this entire body. The rest of the episode follows these two characters as they make their way around the human body, and we're introduced to a ton of other microorganisms, such as the T cells, which are extreme versions of the white blood cells, which will kill absolutely anything which is foreign to the body. These guys are hilarious. They're like a bunch of frickin' frat guys. They just want to kill things. But there's also the exact opposite of that. We have the platelets, which are personified as small, super adorable children. Platelets, of course, are responsible for blood clotting, but the way that they show them in this episode has got to be the cutest damn thing that I have ever seen. And that's not just me saying that, even the main characters believe this as well. While Red and White are actually chasing after this germ, I really like the detail that the white blood cells have these weird little signs on their hats that actually pop up, and whenever that happens, it means that a germ is nearby. And throughout most of the episode, White's actual sign is up the entire time, but they don't see this germ anywhere. It's not revealed until the end of the episode that the package that Red is actually delivering has this virus inside of it, and that leads to the most traditional anime part of the episode, where we actually get some real solid action, with White fighting against this creature and managing to trap it inside of this ball, this bubble, which is then ejected through a missile from the body, which is actually just a big metaphor for a person sneezing. I'm gonna be honest, I felt drunk by the time I was watching the end of this episode, but wow, did this entire premise just absolutely grow on me like a virus as I watched the entire episode. I really think it's the characters that are going to make it, but I still have so many questions for the future of Cells at Work. So, what's the rundown on the very first episode of Cells at Work? If you can separate the fact that this is very similar to Osmosis Jones, I think you're going to have a lot of fun in this episode. Unlike Osmosis Jones, however, this series does something different with the way that they anthropomorphize the characters. Whereas in Osmosis Jones, they still looked very much like things that existed within the human body. The actual world itself looked very organic, and everything was constantly moving, and you even got to see what the human body on the outside looked like. We don't ever actually get to see the human that they actually inhabit in this episode, and I have a feeling that it's going to be kept to a mystery for a very long time, and they're just going to focus on the things that are going on inside this person's body. But the way that they actually portray them in this episode is just fantastic. The character design, while it seems like it could get really boring really fast, with the fact that a lot of these characters look almost identical to each other, I still have a feeling that they're going to have a lot of fun with this one, and I have to admit, I love the character designs of the two main characters, Red and White. Red might be the most attractive-looking microorganism that I've ever seen. The only negative to her character is that throughout most of it, she's basically just screaming at the top of her lungs and being befuddled by this is basically the fact that this is her first day. White, on the other hand, is very calm, very quiet, but when it comes to killing germs, he goes in for the kill with absolute prejudice. And he has a knife, because don't all white blood cells in your body have those, and that seems to be his signature weapon fighting against all of these creatures. The actual germs that he fights against in this episode look so crazy and monster-like. They kind of look like something that Akira Toriyama from Dragon Ball would design, and I didn't think that this was the type of series that would actually lend itself well to action. I truly enjoyed the action sequences in this episode and how they incorporated it with the normal functions of the human body. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the opening for this series, which is just so great in every single way. It totally sets you up for the tone of this series, and it also makes you realize that you shouldn't be taking this stuff too seriously. While I absolutely loved the very first episode of Cells at Work, I have to ask, who is this anime series for? I mean, is it for children? Is it for adults? Because a lot of the stuff here is actually very educational, and I learned a surprising amount about the human body from watching this episode. But at the same time, there's also scenes of extreme violence and action, and I'm not really sure what this is going to be made for, and I'm really interested to see where all this story is eventually going to be headed, especially because by the end of the episode, it's implied that Red and White are never going to see each other again because there's trillions of cells in the body. The chances of them running into each other again is almost next to zero, but the preview sort of gives that away immediately. I wonder if these actual cells actually have their very own sentience. While they can actually display personality, do they actually have lives outside of work? Are they constantly working for the human body? Do these cells go home after work and go to the bar? Like, really, what's going on inside of this world? Even if that doesn't happen, I'm still incredibly intrigued to see where this is ultimately going to be headed and how this is going to balance its educational values with its over-the-top anime style. But the first episode, I thought, did a really great job with that. It manages to be very funny, action-packed, and really, really cool to look at. I can't stress how much I love the designs of the two main leads, red and white. I can see these two characters becoming very popular at anime conventions for cosplay, and I just cannot wait to see more of this ridiculous, over-the-top, super fun anime series. I really loved the first episode of Cells at Work, and it might be, for me, maybe one of the biggest anime surprises of 2018 and of the summer season. I'm really loving this one, and I can't wait to see more from Cells at Work. So if you're looking for a fun, educational, action-packed series with some really goofy and fun characters, I highly recommend checking this show out. I'm going to give the first episode a 5 out of 5. In my opinion, this was a flawless anime experience, and even if we never saw another episode again, I'm very satisfied with what I got right here. It was that good of a first episode. I really hope they're going to be able to keep the quality consistent with the rest of the series, because this was some really good looking stuff. So there's my thoughts on Cells at Work, but I'd love to hear yours. Did any of you guys watch the very first episode? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below, and of course what you guys hope to see from the rest of this ridiculous biological anime series. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down, baby.